Welcome back into Debate Night, everybody. We have got a great episode today, some juicy topics to get into, and I think some analysts that are a little fired up about some of them. So I'm excited to get into today's topics. First things first,
I'm the realist.
We had our first contradiction people's champ versus episode champ of the year.
Wait, whoa, hey.
Yeah.
Whoa, controversy.
Now, did people think Hunter won even though he wasn't here?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how many people vote on the poll that didn't even watch the episode. There, you never know. But in any case, PDGA Mike won the episode, if you remember, and Brodie won the poll. So Brodie was the people's champ last
As always.
week, and
man of the people and people's champ. Wow.
Yeah.
Double titles.
So, but yeah, speaking of him, he's here.
Yeah. Man of the people back at it again. Wacky Waco. Can't wait to talk about that with all you guys. Top comment from last week. Someone said, I'm stoked to see Hannah's back, but what do we got to do to get her a new mic? So maybe we need a little GoFundMe Hannah mic situation.
You know what? Let's do this. If Hannah and Trevor, you're in control of this, you have to be unbiased. If Hannah gets a win, we'll get her a mic.
Okay.
I don't even think it's her mic. I think it might be a setting issue.
No, I say because week one, she sounded okay. Last week, she got crackly for whatever reason. So I think it was a technical glitch.
You know what? Never mind. Off the table.
I will say,
I don't think
she still could do it though.
Again,
you know okay. New offer. If Hannah wins, we'll send Silas out as the IT guy to fix the problem.
You just got to get her one of the whatnot mics. We can buy a billion of those.
And I would not be man of the people unless I actually said the positive and the negative. Okay. There is some potential reading going on that people are starting to see from Hannah.
Oh no.
The comments are starting to come out. There might be a little bit too much reading for some people.
Well, hopefully she doesn't read those comments.
You can't please everyone.
You in a dark place.
Oh man, not the reading allegations on the podcast.
People don't like the reading allegations.
Hunter is here back in his orange spot today, trying that one out.
Back where I belong.
Go Tennessee.
I do have to confess, I voted in the poll on the People's Champ. I picked Brodie. Didn't watch the episode.
So you're part of the problem.
I had to come clean.
I will say, putting Brodie, maybe the only recognizable name at the very top of the poll, might not have been the smartest move on my part. Probably won't happen again. But to be fair, like Hunter won the first couple polls after winning the episode. So,
maybe there's bias there too.
Dustin is back. The same background. You know it. You love
it. As always. I mean, I'm surprised you put out the all-star cast this early in the season. We got season 1 GOAT here, season 2 GOAT Gary. We got Hunter on a roll this year, and then we got the eternal people's champ and man of the people. I mean, like, what more could you ask for?
Wow. Yeah, it could be the Mount Rushmore cast. And then Gary is here as well.
What's up, everybody? I'm so excited to hear how much Dustin loves the Beast course. I'm jazzed up, so it's going to be a good time discussing.
Someone's been reading my Twitter, so thank you.
Do you have a new camera, Gary?
Yes.
Those eyes are looking.
The blue eyes are even better, man.
Yeah, they're looking blue.
Yeah,
Holy cow!
Brand new Sony ZV-1, no sponsor.
No sponsor. Amazon affiliate link is in the description. You can plug anything you want on this podcast. We're putting the affiliate link down.
That's
below.
fair.
We're gonna get those Christmas bucks.
Not anything you want.
Not anything you want. You can't affiliate everything.
We'll only link to certain things.
That's right. All right. Let's get into some of the good stuff here. We had I feel like Waco always gives us some storylines, and we had a really exciting one here. So Adam James, he sunk a clutch putt on 18 to win Waco and get his first win since 2023. But should there be an asterisk due to a debatable call made in his favor during round 2? If you hadn't seen it, there was an OB call with a very notorious screenshot and camera angle from the broadcast, which made the disc look to most quite out of bounds, but it was called in. Brodie, what do we think?
So I looked like 5 minutes on the internet for this, and I'm starting to think there might not be an actual official sign from the refs when you defer, because I couldn't find one. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I would like whatever the signage of deferring, I would love to defer this question, because I really want to hear what these guys have to say and then just tear them apart. Because I don't know who, but someone is going to say something silly, and I cannot wait to tear them apart because the answer to this is no. There shouldn't be an asterisk at all. And that's really all I have to say. So I'm going to defer or use my time maybe towards the end for
Can
a
I answer his
rebuttal.
question? It's the flags go like this on a defer for a spotter. We can do that if you
For a
want.
spotter?
for
What?
disc
Like
golf.
spotters do
Yeah,
this with the
disc
green and
golf
red
do
flags
that.
if they don't know.
What does that
Or
mean?
want to they're deferring the call to the card. They don't
We
know.
don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking
That is a
about
disc golf.
football, Gary. I'm talking about when a team
Dustin
wins.
started the
I
response.
was just trying to be helpful.
Dustin, I'm talking about football when you win the toss.
I
and
gotta
you-
be honest. I don't
and
think there is a
you wanna
sign
def-
because
that's what I'm saying. They say they
well, it's
defer
all
to the
happening
third.
within the huddle. So they're just like, hey man, they deferred.
Yeah,
What would you like?
Yeah. So I'm deferring to the second half is what I'm doing here.
Okay, sounds great. That's great. You gave away your answer, so we'll see if
Well, my
anybody.
answer is
couple of
no, but I
points.
know
Yeah.
someone's going to say something silly.
Okay, Hunter. What say you?
Oh, let me say something silly here. No, I don't. So, okay, I get the idea behind this, right? I get why you would want to think, can we put an asterisk on it? But here's the truth of the matter. Even with both camera angles that both, in my opinion, show the disc clearly out of bounds, we were not there. So we don't know what the card saw. We only know what we sitting at home can see from those two angles. And there had to have been some type of discussion. Clearly, there was a discussion, but some type of something that swayed the card. But even if it is clearly OB and Adam Hammes is saying, I think I'm in bounds, it's not on Adam Hammes. There was 3 other people on the card. So you can't put an asterisk on Adam Hammes' win because, of course, I'm, as a competitor, going to be like, look, I think there's an argument to be made. I'm making the argument that I'm in bounds. It's on the other 3 to hold true to the rule and say, look, you're clearly OB. I get you want to fight for it. I'm sorry. Your spot's way back there. You didn't even hit and bounce, whatever they want to say. So really, it's not on Adam. So you can't take away his win or put an asterisk next to his win. If anything, there should be heat on the other 3 people on the card for not standing up, which again makes me think that they had to have seen something that we couldn't see. And I would love for one of them to explain what they saw because it looks like it's a clear OB call, but it must not have been as clear as we all think. And for me, you can't take something away from a guy when there's 3 other people that you really should be going after with it.
Okay, so Hunter turning the heat up on the card mates. Dustin, do you agree with that take?
I agree with the take. I don't think there should be an asterisk on this because, look, while it may look like a call, we only got one camera angle. We only got one view of the disc, and so we can't know for certain if they got the call wrong or not. As he mentioned, it's a Card and Marshall decision. At the end of the day, they have to make the call, and we have to go with whatever call that they make, and they had the best eyes on it than anyone else. This same thing happened with Holland Hanley at Throw Pink on hole 18. Do you remember that? Whenever it was the whole gate, whether or not she crossed in bounds or not, people have probably already forgotten about that, and people who haven't forgotten about it will probably 10 years from now. So I do think that okay. I'm sure additional calls like this kind of happen all the time. We just don't always see it on coverage. Again, it always comes down to the Marshall. And I actually wanted to kind of show something real quick here. Do a little little show and tell. Little show and tell here. This is the bias of what you might have seen from some of the images out there. And someone did this on Reddit. You can see that from above and rotated, that the disc might actually look a lot more inbounds over top than from the side views that we got. And so that's just what I'm saying. Like, kind of going to what Hunter was saying, I think depending on what view the players had, it could have looked a lot more inbounds than what it looked like. Also, I'm going to say this is a terrible OB line. Why do we have fat paint on unmanicured grass? Give me thin lines that are very well defined that make it easier to read. Also, even if he got called OB here, he still may have won the tournament. I mean, if we're just going by one stroke, he still has a playoff with Simon. Who knows what happens from there? And he played phenomenal the final round when other people were falling off to get the W. So I'm not going to put an asterisk on this.
Dustin's faceless now. He's I thought he was going to be the cat.
I can be that if you want for a while.
Rest of the show.
No, I'm back.
Okay, Gary. So there's kind of been a consensus here. No asterisk. Heat goes to the card mates. Where are you sitting with all this?
Yeah, we got a number of problems here, so let's look at them. First of all, that they pan out and they see that there's no spotter running to check that lie. And Brian says, not a question. Sounds like they gave him the flag. And the only spotter we see is standing outside opposite C1 side of the basket, nearly 100 feet away. And there's no way he's making that call. But he ran over a card earlier for Queen's very similar shot. And then they cut to Hammes sitting there looking super nervous, cursing under his breath. How does he not throw a provisional there? How does the card not say, go throw a provisional? And then we cut to the spot, Adam clearly states, laying on the ground, that there's it's in green grass on this side, it's not painted, and he even said on Staggered Stance last night that there were spots where the disc was in by a full inch. Chris Dickerson walks up and says, Chris Dickerson walks up and says, I don't want to say that you're out. Ezra Calvin call it in. He gets the call. All that aside, totally agree. There's no asterisk here because what we witnessed is a very common problem on the Pro Tour. It's a slightly unclear scenario. There was no marshal here to make the call, and the pros were kind of unsure of what to do. And Adam didn't operate outside of what we have allowed to become a standard on the tour. Had the same thing happen to Calvin, to Chris, or to Ezra, we would have probably gotten the same result. And what's unfortunate here, it highlights a real need for better marking standards, but it doesn't diminish Adam's consistent play and the cold-blooded finish that he had. It just shows us that we need standardization in marking, players willing to make calls, and marshals on consequential holds like 17 and 18. They mentioned the marshal was there with the lead car for the final round. Where were they here for the second round?
Claiming that it was in by a whole inch. Hey guys, it wouldn't have taken that long to figure out if it was in by a whole inch somewhere. That is a bizarre take. We just wish we were there, you know.
Somebody timestamped the video of him saying that, just called it the lie. ...
The internet has decided. Like Hunter and I were pretty open-minded on Grip Block because, like, yeah, we don't know all the angles, and they did call him in, but the internet, they have decided.
Well, but Trevor, we didn't watch coverage.
But that's also true. We didn't watch the coverage.
So there's no way. We didn't see anything.
It's very true.
I don't even know what the lie is we're talking about, but I hope I sounded convincing.
The internet's not totally unanimous, by the way. I got that model from Glittering Row on Reddit. I do want to give that guy a shout out because I did use his thing. So
you didn't build it yourself?
I did not.
Sweet.
Lame.
I did my own research though to find it.
Okay. That's true. That's true. Scholarly sources only.
You just gotta cite your sources.
Definitely a little scandalous. I do think I hate these situations because I think a lot of times the reason they get blown up is because, you know, it's round 2. The tournament's not ending at this point. Those card mates just don't want to be in that situation. They don't want to have to make those calls. And so it might have been really iffy, and they might just, you know, the easier thing to do is let it go. I still don't know if he gets that call if it's round 3 and he's trying to win.
That would have been curious. That would have been very interesting.
Like, because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're going to beat me if I give you this call. You better make an argument. Like, you better make a case for this rather than benefit goes to the player. But wasn't there, didn't see the disc, so I can't really. I've seen some pictures, and Hunter actually showed a new screenshot that was on Jomez. Even worse.
Okay.
So
the Jomez one did look like it was more over top. I'll see if I can find it again.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
So 3 things to add if I can.
Yeah.
First one, not taking a provisional is crazy because the psychology there of being like, am I really going to call this guy out? And now he's got to walk all the way around. That does play there. That does play a little bit. The second thing, a lot of people don't know what benefit of the player means. Yep. That is not hey, this is too close to call. Like, I don't know. Benefit to the player means when 2 people say you're in and 2 people say you're out, the benefit goes to the player and you get the in call. So you have to make a call. You can't say it's so close, benefit to the player. That's not a rule. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of players don't know that. And the third thing is, what ends up happening, and I think Gary was talking about the thin line, and Dustin was talking about, the spotty grass. This happened to me. It literally looked like someone had come in and taken grass. My disc was on the line. Someone had come in and taken the grass that was spray painted and had like grabbed it and picked it up and like just ripped it out. And so it just didn't exist anymore. And so the line was painted like this, and then it did like that. So there was a little bit of like this where you're like, oh, I see specks of paint, but it's like my disc is touching non-painted grass. And the problem with this is people are going to look at this differently. There are going to be some people, like you guys have said, where you look at it and you're just like, bro, like the line looks like this. Your disc is like a half inch behind, you're out. And then there's going to be other people that are going to look and say, my disc is touching grass that is not painted. Therefore, I'm in.
if you go to a blade of grass, like you can make a lot of calls.
And some people are going to play that way. And so that's why this, at the end of the day, is not a good way of making inbounds and out of bounds, because not everyone is going to call it the same way.
The best part of this whole thing was it is a very confusing rule to people that the line is not safe. And so for the first half hour on the internet, it was people arguing because like
everyone thought the line was
arguing because they thought like they were like the line is in. Like, what are you talking about?
I found the picture. I don't know if my camera will focus.
That looks pretty good. That does look pretty bad.
So bad.
Yeah. In by
It looks real bad.
Wait,
So
Hunter,
that's
remember
more,
the 3D
more
model,
over the
everyone?
top.
Hunter, text that to me.
It
Okay.
is.
Because I think what this situation is, it's like my situation where you're actually breaking. Yes.
Wait till you see it, because you'll literally in that picture see white grass on the wrong side of the disc.
No. My disc had white grass on the wrong side as well.
How the heck did that just happen?
Let me
Silas
see
is
this.
just
Silas is a wizard.
firing on all cylinders.
No
I can't even
side?
see it. I'm just looking at a picture of Dustin right now.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything, but once Dustin went full screen, my camera has not went back. I'm full screen Dustin.
But
just
but
let it
You're
happen.
talking about in the veto room.
the thing that is funny though is like we do the comparisons a lot of times to like other sports, and it's like, yes, our sport, there's no money involved. To get people to come out and spectate or to volunteer for free is difficult. And then you have a sport like the NFL that has billions of dollars, and yet they don't have a camera angle down the line of the goal line half the time. They don't have any technology that lets you know whether the ball crossed the goal line. So like $1 billion company has problems with a lot of the refereeing and stuff. And so
the difference is the $1 billion company keeps it around for the history of the game. It's not usually because they can't fix it. Now the camera thing, sure.
I don't know
But
about
like
that. They
the
put
goal
cameras
line thing
in.
you described.
they
They're
put
changing it this year. The chains no longer exist. The only reason goal line technologies existed in soccer for years.
I'm talking about having the technology of being able to see whether the ball like when you're running into a pile.
Yeah.
To where you can't see anything.
That is what they will have this year. Now there will be a chip in the ball that will tell you
that
it crossed over the lines.
Okay, yeah.
That's how first downs will be decided and touchdowns this year.
Gotcha.
Here's an idea I had, because I think that a big reason we even have this discussion is because of the length of the grass, which I think Dustin brought up.
This is not a top-down angle, by the way.
It's as close as we have.
But it's still not top-down. I honestly
more
think
top-down than like the left. The original one was from the left. This one's much more top-down than the original one. Is what I was saying.
Silas, put the camera, because this is literally what happened with my situation. If you look at it, if you look at the photo if you're looking at the photo, the right side of the line is super heavily painted. The left side of the line is super heavily painted. And then in the middle where his disc is, there is areas where there's no paint on the grass.
Yeah, it gets spotty.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying is players will look at that. And as long as, even though we can look at this at all and say like, well, clearly if the line was repainted, right? We all agree if the line was repainted, his disc would be out.
Don't know that from the angle that we have.
From those angles, yes.
I think this is close enough, Dustin, that you can.
Did you see my 3D model? I mean, I worked very hard to show that to everyone.
Yes, but his disc isn't close to the actual line.
Well, here's
his disc is set up. My point is,
I have a solution.
But my point is that's what's happening here. Is if you see any grass that isn't painted,
grass is just imperfect,
and your disc is touching it, people are going to fight for that being in bounds across the board, not just Adam.
Totally
across the board, and so you can't get upset. You can't get upset.
My solution is we already have someone walking to paint. We send someone in front of them with a weed eater, and you just weed whack the grass where the paint's going to be down to as low as possible. Because then when you paint it, that grass can't move.
Well, let me tell you another thing that happens. What if someone is putting right on the line, right? Their back foot, they're doing the Paul Macbeth, and they're digging in the back of the line. And what happens is the line all of a sudden goes down to the mud. And so again, the disc lands, you look at the line like, oh yeah, you're clearly out.
What happens
they go
is
up and say, hey, no, I'm just saying paint is not paint is not a good way of doing OB. When you're on courses that are that aren't maintenance.
Sure.
When you're on golf courses, sure.
If you're picking paint, you have to like commit to keeping it up the entire tournament. and on manicured
but that
grass.
still doesn't solve my problem, Gary. My problem is someone.
That's Dustin, not Gary.
I'm not
I
Gary.
keep saying Dustin. My
What you
problem.
doing, man?
Sorry. My problem is someone like digging their foot in or slipping or like anything. All of a sudden, that paint line changes.
I get you. Yeah.
And so, like, yes, that's why people are looking at this and going crazy. And it's like, my guess is whoever was doing the little painty thing,
Right.
maybe missed a little spot or some grass got moved down, and it is what it is.
Moving on.
Moving on up.
The scandal that reigns supreme there. All right, we're going to talk FPO. So Kristen Lott picked up right where she left off last season, cruising to victory while her competitors failed to make a charge. Should we be buckled in for another season of the same old FPO, or have you seen any signs that the field can catch up in 2025 after just one event, obviously? Hunter, what do you think?
So, okay, I'm going to answer this in kind of conflicting ways, but just stick with me. Should we be buckled in for another season of same old FPO? If by same old FPO, you mean, should we be buckled in for Kristen to dominate? I think most likely yes, if that's what this question's asking. Are there signs the field can catch up in 2025? Yes. My argument is going to be based on eye test, right? Here's what I have concluded with my watching of disc golf. What Kristen accomplishes when it comes to throws and putts, there is very few things, if anything, that Kristen does that I look at other players in the field and say they cannot currently do, right? Sure, she has a little bit of distance on some people. Sure, her forehand's a little bit better than some people, but there's not something that she has. It's like, holy cow, she's throwing 550 feet. No one else in the field can do it. That's why she's winning. She's winning because she just doesn't make mistakes when a lot of other players make mistakes. So it's a consistency issue, not a skill issue. Now, is that one of the hardest things to improve on? Sure. But for instance, if Evelina can all of a sudden make more putts, she's challenging Kristen. If Missy Gannon can just play consistent, I think she has the full game to play consistent against Kristen. If Missy Gannon can just play consistent, she's challenging Kristen. If Silva Saarinen gets a little bit more distance, she's challenging Kristen. So I think that there's so many players that are close and have all the skill sets. It's just they have to be able to consistently put it together. So could that happen in this season? Absolutely. Will it probably take a year or two more? Most likely.
Okay, so Hunter's still holding out for the future. Dustin, I noticed you didn't quite agree with one of those statements. What are your thoughts?
I'll get to that in a second. Look, I don't think we're necessarily going to see another year where Kristen won 4 majors like she did in 2023, but I certainly think it's possible that we get a similar season to last year where she won 5 Elite Series events, and she did win a major at the European Open, and she won Throw Pink, a major in our hearts. And she also had so many additional podium finishes. In fact, her worst finish was 8th place last year, and that is the worst she has ever finished in her entire life at a major on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and that goes all the way back to 2018 Worlds. So when you're that consistent for that long of a stretch of time, I just know that you're going to be consistently one of the best players no matter what happens until something drastically changes in your game or injury or, mental focus or something stops you, internally, not from the field. She's just been on fire for too long and just has such a proven track record of success. And look, she's not the furthest thrower. She doesn't have the best forehand. She's probably not even the best putter, but she is so well-rounded in all those areas. And yes, she doesn't make the mistakes. She doesn't seem to have the big choking moment. Like, she's just well-rounded in her game, has a complete game and can do it all. Now, meanwhile, what has changed for the field? Hannah and Evelina still can't putt to save their lives. And at this point, I don't know why we're thinking that they're going to. Until they show me something, I'm not going to believe it. I mean, look, in this tournament alone, Evelina had a round where she went 0 for 9 from C1X. And she went 1 for 15 from Circle 2. Hannah went 0 for 11 for Circle 2 for the entire tournament. Had a round where she went 8 for 18 from C1X. How many more rounds of this do we have to go before we give up on that? Does she have some people who consistently contend against her? Yes, Ella, Holland, some of these people will beat her, but she will still be the most dominant player in the field.
Okay, yeah, it's kind of where I've gotten to with the putting thing. I don't know, Gary, do you agree?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it cruising, though, because it was only 2 strokes going into the final round, and she still had to come out and play well in that final round. And it was only 2 strokes through 10 holes over Henna. The problem was that Henna went +1 on 11 through 18, missed 2 putts less than 15 feet, and kept putting herself in C2 for birdie, which isn't going to work. And Holland Hanley was only 39% C1 in regulation, which matched her birdie rate, which is also not the way you win events. But here's the real kicker. Kristen didn't even play her best this weekend. In rounds 1 and 2, her C1X putting percentage was 44 and 67% respectively. Kristen won because you don't get to make very many mistakes at Waco. And she led the field in bogey percentage and fairways hit, which means she kept it clean and she kept it in play. And I think it's too early to tell for the whole season, but between you and me and the lamppost, I'm on Team Kristen Monster year this year. I think she looks back at 2023 or 2024 and she sees 5 Elite Series wins, 1 major win, 1 should be major win, 1 A-tier win, and she's just like, that's not enough for me. And I think she's eyeing up a 2023 Kristen year in her sights. It could be close to that, I think. And why is that? It's not because she's so far and ahead, the only good player in FPO. It's because the FPO field refuses to continue their own development to catch her. I think Silva is going to be great, but needs a little more time. I think her contemporaries like Ella and Holland struggle with their consistency big time. And the younger talent like Evelina and Henna refuse to deal with their mental putting issues. Go talk to a sports psychologist. Missy's going to steal a win this year. Some others are going to get win on her off weeks. But by and large, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Kristen in 2025.
Yeah, certainly seems unavoidable. Brodie, is there anything that's going to stop Kristen this year?
No. Yeah, no. It looks exactly the same. I mean, the big 2 things that I really wanted to see coming into this year was, did Evelina and Henna fix their putting? That was the big one, because I think Evelina, more so than Henna, are the 2 big throwers as far as consistency goes, as far as being able to go, especially Evelina, both backhand and forehand, not really have a hole that they can't birdie. I thought Evelina was definitely the one that could maybe push it. Their putting is just the same. It hasn't gotten any better. I mean, Henna 5 putted a hole. Trevor, okay. There also is the next group, Holland, Missy, Own. Those I would consider are like the consistent players, right? Those are the ones that are going to be probably top 10 most of the time. There are some courses that suit their game better than others. However, the big issue with them is if Kristen plays good, they can't beat her. They can only beat Kristen when Kristen has an off week. And that doesn't happen all that often. Ella's, I think, maybe the next person to maybe get into that next grouping, maybe Kat Murch. Silva was my wild card. I really was interested. This was her first Waco. It takes a little bit of time to figure out some of the holes. She shot even par, -1, -5. So she did get better as the course went, as the weekend went on. But she played hole 9 and 17, 3 over par for the tournament. And Hunter, I do want to touch on one thing. You said consistency issue, not a skill issue. I disagree, because when I get what you're trying to say, but you can throw a scuba.
Sure.
So
yes.
Right, but you can't do it well. So I wouldn't say that's a skill of yours, right?
I can throw one well every once in a while.
But my point is like being consistent at something is a skill.
Yeah,
and that is one thing that a lot of these people just do not have. They don't have it, and that's why Kristen can just walk in and win tournaments with not even her A game.
Certainly looks like that could be the case this year. We will have to see if anybody shows up. Now we're going to talk about one of the hot points of this event, something that was being discussed a lot, and that is the course itself. So the Beast course is once again under fire, with fans and players not liking the scoring separation and design. Where do you stand on the property's validity as a tour stop? Do the problems pose a real issue, or are they fun quirks that breed excitement? Dustin, I know you have an opinion here, so let's hear it.
I'll start with some positives to be nice. I think it's a great FPO course. I think it scores well. The distances make sense, and it has the history and all that jazz. I think it's great. I think holes 17 and 18 are a great finishing combo for both fields. And I think due to the nature of the course, when you have so many players in the hunt for the win on the final round, that is going to be exciting for viewers. I'll give it that. But overall, it's way too soft for MPO, for an Elite Series event on this Golf Pro Tour. Wind cannot be your defense in course design. And if it is a constant thing you deal with, then maybe you have some alternate pins for windy days, but you can't let that be a main way that you design this course. And then look at it. On round 1, where I guess the wind was like its second strongest of the week, you had 11 holes that were 40% birdie or better. 2 additional holes were close at 37%. And the vast majority were getting par if they weren't getting birdie. Round 2, when the wind was up, you still had 9 holes that were 40% birdie or better. And then the majority were still pars on the rest of the scoring. Then when the wind was down in round 3, you had 13 holes that were 40% birdie or better. And then again, the majority is pars, right? The only 2 holes that really had any scoring separation, I feel like, were hole 9 and 12. And then the final 2 holes, 17 and 18. That were really the only ones that had scoring separation. So when you look at the course, I think it starts off very soft. 4 can be kind of tricky, and that can be a little bit of separation, but that's really the only threat on the front 9 other than hole 9. 5 to 8 are completely forgettable and boring, in my opinion. And then, 13 through 16, I think the way that they had set them up, like 15 and 16, you can just chip and birdie. You don't, I guess if you try to run for the eagle, the score separation happens, but it doesn't come into play off the tee if you play conservative. So, I think it's way too soft.
Okay. Dustin definitely adamant that it is too soft. Gary, do you agree?
I'm going to admit that sometimes we need to check our opinions at times. And every year, I think Waco puts a bit of a spell on me because I come into the event not super excited for it. And I sound a lot like Dustin does. But then I end up glued to my screen during the final round and that's not the first time. I mean, look at the last 5 years. It's come down to holes 17 and 18 all 5 years. It's never been decided by more than 3 strokes. Most years decided by only 1 stroke or 2 strokes. But what I don't like about the course is that sometimes I think the wooded section tends to blur together. It's really easy to tune out and tune back in and really not know what hole you're on. But I think that holes 17 and 18, like Dustin said, are one of the best finishing combos that we have on tour. Whether or not I think this is a valid professional course, at the FPO level, I think it's a great professional course because the score separation seems solid, is challenging. And for the MPO, I think it gets to show us a different kind of skill like we just talked about, and that's what consistency looks like. It provides a great contrast between events like Olympus and of course at Northwood. And like Simon said in his vlog, it's fun to watch pros shred the course. I mean, we saw Jake Mon tying Macbeth's 49 from 2019, and deep down inside, we all know that's fun to watch. But ask me a week ago, I would have said the beast days are numbered. But ask me today, you know what? Let's keep it early in the stretch. Let's preserve the history. Let's see what a sprint looks like in the MPO field. Waco has always been a wacky event. I mean, for goodness sakes, we've got Nico LaCastro throwing lefty shots on 16 and 17 and doing really great with them. Let's let it be wacky. And for the pros that hate on it for being too easy, maybe don't come in 50th place and miss cash.
Oh, there you have it. Brodie, okay, do you think Waco makes sense in this kind of sprint format where it's at?
I mean, it's a different course, unlike probably any other courses that we play on tour. So it does have like that unique feel when we go there. But I think this is just something that disc golf is going to have to try to figure out, because so many people want to see courses like this. So many people don't want to see courses like this. It just seems like right now there's not really a course out there or a tournament out there that everyone agrees on is like, this is a great tournament. This is a great course. We should have more like this. And, after watching the Players Championship this past weekend for golf, like golf has an identity. They have figured it out of like, this is how we're making golf courses. This is how some courses are going to score. This is how some courses aren't going to score. And I think disc golf still has to try to figure that out. I think the big thing with this course is there's 8 par 3s and no par 5s. I think that could maybe be changed a little bit. And the big thing for me with this is the par 4s outside of hole 17. That is the only tee shot on the par 4s that distance actually matters. If you do not throw your shot over about 325 feet on hole 17, you cannot birdie unless you're Jared Stoll. Every other par 4, if you shank your tee shot, if you throw it straight into the ground, you can still birdie from. And so to me, like that, I think is another thing of where some people might want more for it, but I don't know. I can go back and forth on this all day. I've never understood the disc golf minds that want the course the way it is, but people love it. But maybe it's a small population that love it, and that's maybe what disc golf will always be.
Hunter, are you part of that population?
So here's where I think things fall apart, right? Is when we talk about courses and we look at courses and we're leading into the event, we look at the stats. And where stats go out the window is when you're sitting at home on the couch trying to enjoy a tournament. And that's what you got to look at Waco as, because what people want when they're watching disc golf, right, is they want to see something exciting. They want an exciting finish, and they want their favorite players in contention. And by golly, Waco gives us that almost every single time. And so when you look at it, sure, can it be a little fluky at times? Are there, really easy? Is it soft? Blah, blah, blah. Sure. But there have been courses where I have been adamant against them being soft. And a lot of times the reason for that has been it doesn't have any defense at all. It, is a little gimmicky in its course design where it doesn't reward good shots versus bad shots. And I feel like Waco, if you throw a good shot, you're rewarded. There are very clearly defined fairways. The rough is very rough in the woods. That's why I think the woods can be a little bit blurry when you get in there, right? You forget some of the holes, but they're important because the rough is rough. And then the finishing stretch is absolutely electric. So what does that create? It creates a jumbled up leaderboard, and it creates an exciting finish. And you take me back a few years ago, I would have been in the fence of this doesn't fit because I was in the stance of the best players in the world need to compete week in and week out. Well, you fit this into this modern day tour, and I think it fits a lot better because so many players are so freaking good that our minds are way more accepting to an Adam Hammes win here versus the Colton Montgomery win several years ago. If Colton Montgomery pops off and wins here, I'm going to be a lot more accepting to that because we're not seeing a Paul and Ricky dominated tour. We're seeing a Gannon Burr dominated tour, but it's not Gannon Burr versus just Ricky Wysocki. It's Gannon Burr versus a mix of people. So I think this tournament actually fits more into the modern tour than it did into the older tour.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that those are definitely the sides of it. Is it perfect? No. Does it provide entertainment? Yes. And I think that's what will probably keep it around for a little bit longer. Last topic here for the finals, we want to talk about Paul McBeth a little bit. So Paul McBeth arrived in the driver's seat to win his first event in over a year. He had a lead going down the stretch there, but some huge mistakes down the stretch saw him slide all the way outside the top 10. Have these first two events done more to convince you he'll be back soon or more to convince you his best days are behind him for good? Obviously, a couple decent events, but are you just not really being convinced at this point, Gary?
Sliding past 10th place means nothing to me because we know that once Paul's officially out of an event, he doesn't care what place he finishes in. During the press conference at the Supreme Flight Open, Paul said to everyone that mentally he feels more invested in tournaments this year than he has in a long time, and that his expectations are always set to win. And this is 2 events in a row now that Paul's been on the lead card going into the final round, and that inspires great confidence in Paul. But I'm going to say what other people aren't going to say. I know it. You know it. We all can sense it. He's not the same McBeast from before. He used to walk onto the course and will putts into the basket. He exerted pressure on every single person around him. And that doesn't mean he's bad. And I'm not saying that Paul's washed or anything like that. I just think that Paul is now just another one of the talented pros on tour and that the roar of the McBeast is gone. Paul from 2019 and before would have missed the man to 113. He would have thrown a frustrated shot to C2, and then he would have walked up and cashed that putt while staring down his competitors in the eyes. He would have adjusted his putt, realized he wasn't out of it yet, and he would have gone on to be successful and maybe win or take second or whatever. But that's not what we saw. We saw a top-level pro struggling to keep his putt at the right height. We saw a skilled veteran who was frustrated after every single shot he threw. He knew out of his hand, and then you'd see him scoff at his own throws. The days of, I think, sheer dominance for Paul are done. I think he has all the talents to win, and I think he's capable of getting a win this season, but I think his chances of winning are now just like everybody else's.
Okay. Yeah. So just one of the pack, Brodie, is that where you kind of got him placed at this point?
Well, I love how Gary started that because one of the notes I wrote down is I remember hearing people talk all the time about how Paul only cares about winning, and if he doesn't win, he doesn't care if he gets second or third. But Gary, real quick, let's run the numbers. Let's run the numbers. If Paul would have eagled hole 15, which he laid up on, if Paul would have eagled hole 16, which he laid up on, if Paul would have birdied and went McBeast mode on hole 17, which he bogeyed, guess what he would have shot? 31 under par.
Mm-hmm.
He would have won the tournament. So this idea of he only cares about winning or not, he laid up on 15. He laid up on 16 when he still could have won the tournament.
You proved my argument.
How am I proving your argument? If all he cares about is winning, why does he lay up on 15 and 16?
Because the Paul who he said he was before is not who he is now. He can say he's more focused.
Okay, gotcha. So he does. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. So you're saying that Paul is dead. The one that so he cares about where he finishes now. Not he was kind of protecting maybe a top 10 finish there by laying up on 15 and 16 versus actually going for the win. Is what you're 100%
saying. Could have won that event.
Okay. All right, gotcha. Yeah, then we agree. Yeah, because the plays of laying up on 15 and 16 where it's 100% trying to protect maybe a top 10 finish versus actually trying to win. Like
very
a lot
valid
of people
points.
say.
Very valid points. Hunter, what do you think?
So, the root of this question, has the first 2 events done more to convince me he'll be back soon or convince me his best days are behind him? Well, his best days are for sure behind him. I think we can just all agree on that one, right? Because his best days are freaking good. I mean, the 2 of the greatest seasons of all time, 2015 and 2019. I mean, the dude's won 6 world championships. Yeah, the best days are behind him. But I think the first two events have convinced me that he will probably win at some point. Mainly because I don't think it's going to be a win in the fact that like how we've seen Gannon Burr win or how we've seen Paul Macbeth win in the past. But what we have seen is he's able to put himself in contention. And if you put yourself in contention enough in a field that's very chaotic, I think a win's going to fall to him. But I think that's the difference of the Paul of old and the Paul of today is I think a win's going to have to put him in contention, put him in a spot where he's in it on 17 or 18, and he just has to make a putt or two putts to close it out. This one was one where from like hole 11 on, he had to really put the pedal to the metal and he just couldn't pull it together. So I think that it's more going to be, he's going to win one when he is really playing smooth, builds up a lead, maybe loses it a little bit and just has to make one or two shots to save it. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's news to anyone that Paul is just not as consistent as he once was. And he's not playing at that high consistent level like a Gannon Burr is. So I think, yes, his best days are behind him, but I do think a win is in the future. If he goes another 4, 5, 6 events without that win, the pressure is going to build. And, then I might be swayed the other way.
All right, Dustin, any convincing done on your end that he can get back to maybe a better version of himself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'm going to focus on is the better version of himself compared to last year. Because last year he didn't get a win, right? And, we're looking for him to finally get back in that winner's circle. And I do think that, yes, he did blow up on that back nine. There's no doubt about it. We can all point to it. But I think that if you just look at the totality of the tournament, the dude had a good game all the way until hole 11 onward in that final round. Like, he looked good, his backhand looked good, forehand looked good, his C1X putting is on point. I think the only weak thing that I've noticed was that all 3 rounds of circle 2 putting was not that good. And obviously the clutch putting at the end when it really matters wasn't that good. But when you look at his actual game and how he played that course, he was up there with everyone else all the way until that final stretch whenever he needed the clutch. And yeah, the fall was ugly, but I still think that he shows he has a skill. And yeah, as Hunter mentioned, his best days are behind him. He's not going to win 4 world titles in a row again. He's not maybe ever going to win another world title. I don't know. And he's obviously never going to have another dominant season like he had in 2015 where he's winning, that year they had 5 majors. Yeah, that's not going to happen. But what I have seen at the Supreme Flight Open and what I saw at Waco show me that outside of his circle 2 putting and outside of a couple of yanks here and there, that he has the complete game necessary to be competitive and to potentially get a win. He already got a podium finish. Again, he was very much in the mix to win that tournament. I think it looks a lot better than what I saw last year. And so I do still see him as a contender, but yeah, he's not going to be the dominant big beast that he once was. And I do think that it is damning that he did kind of, as Brodie indicated, kind of gave up after a couple of bad moments there when he still technically could have won.
Yeah, it was rough because it really was.
Do you think he knew he could have still won?
I don't think so. Here's the thing. So. I want to go back to that really quick.
Do you think he didn't look at the scores and
I don't know. Here's the thing.
He was looking at the scores because he was the one that told Adam.
Let's go through it really quick. Quick.
So he was the one that told Adam, like, hey, you need to birdie 18.
Yeah.
So
he was looking at the scores
because he normally looks. Yeah, playing with him. He normally looks at scores throughout the round.
I was actually going to, so really quick. So remember, he birdies hole 10, right? And then the big thing that happened to him, like the first really bad one was whenever he shanked hole 13. And he actually got lucky he missed the Mando because he got to go to the drop zone and stay par.
He was winning on hole 13.
He had a lead.
But this was before, this was before Hamas goes OB on 15.
Yep. Which is the only decision Paul made.
Exactly.
Might be looking at is Paul laid up because Hamas went OB. And at that point,
and AB goes OB on hole 16.
Yeah.
Then Heimberg has that crazy blow up decision on 17 where he tries to throw a forehand over the woods.
Yeah, he had to.
So the way the timeline played out, like he probably didn't expect all those mistakes to happen.
Yeah. I think he just had defeated himself. And
I guess it did just seem like a little check. I mean, because
it was surprising to everybody where the lead ended up settling. Like we did not think Simon was going to be in it.
Yeah, in it for a playoff.
But even if he would have, if I'm doing the numbers right, even if he would have birdied 15, right? He would have birdied 16. That puts him at 27 under. He birdies 17 instead of bogeys. He loses to Adam still by 1.
Yes.
So like, I just feel like he checked out because at that point in time, you have to assume the people around you aren't going to blow up and play. And also just like same thing with Adam, like Adam's not laying up that last putt. Like if you have a chance to win In disc golf, you go for it. No one like plays safe and hopes the people in MPO. I know this happens to FPO, but in MPO, no one plays safe and hopes the people around them mess up down the road.
Yeah, the key. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was just my point.
The key moment there is definitely hole 15 because Adam goes first and he throws OB. So Paul's thinking to himself, maybe, okay, if I throw safe here, I have a better chance of pressing later if I have to. I get the stroke here. But the problem is on his upshot, he hits that tree and now he ends up taking the par.
That was rough.
So 16 is the hole where he's got to make that decision. And it's the least windy of all the days. I think he could have probably pressed that if he wanted to get himself into deep circle 2 and give himself an eagle look, maybe a roller, maybe a big sky shot, definitely possible. But his decision to lay up there was just, I was just sitting there. Baffled.
I think if you're going to go for eagle, you have to go for 15, not 16.
I think old Paul
Better
there
chance.
says, I'm taking this into my own hands and I'm either winning it or losing it. And new Paul is like, I hope Adam messes up at the end so I win.
I think the big difference is
right.
just
Like that's what he's doing that's the math he's doing in his head.
I think it's the big difference is just the self-confidence of like before there was just there was never even a question of I might mess up on any, like there was never a doubt in any of our minds, much less Paul's mind on he was going to even miss the putt on 13 for the par save, much less any of the other mistakes like that he was making on that important stretch that ended up costing him the tournament. I think he just kind of got almost timid and lost some confidence to where like there were just things that he would have easily done before and felt like I need to step on someone's throat. And instead he was like Kristen almost of like, I hope someone hands this to me.
Yeah.
So that's not what was actually going on in his head, but that's like what it was kind of conveying.
It's play style.
I go back to what I said. If you just watch his demeanor, every shot that came out of his hand, the putts, the up shots, the tee shots, he hated it the moment.
Everything after 13, everything after that moment.
It almost was like he hated it before he ththrew it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was weird. And I went back to compare, as I wanted to compare Jake Mon's 49 to Paul's. I went back and watched Paul's 2019 round. It's just a different person on screen.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's get into our final topic here. Dustin and Gary, we're doing kind of a classic here, our buy, sell, and hold. And I wanted to throw 3 players in here that may seem different, but I think have some similarities in Ricky Wysocki, Isaac Robinson, and Eagle McMahon. So you got to buy one, sell one, and hold one. Gary, would you like to go first or second?
I'd like to go first, but I'm going to say real quick, Dustin, if it's okay with you, you want to go even up 0-0 here and may the best man win?
We can do that if you also agree to nerf your blue eyes, because I think that is totally unfair. Put some shades on or something. Help me out here, brother.
Nothing I can do about that. Sorry.
You know what? If you do what you want, man. I think you personally, I think you earned your lead. You deserved it. But if you want to do that, you go for it, man.
All right. Whoever makes the more compelling argument is going to win this.
That's what I like.
All square. All right, Gary, go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to start out with the morbid one, which is I'm going to sell on Eagle McMahon. He's 27 years old, and I'm sad to say it, but I think the best Eagle we're ever going to see is behind us. He's just not been the same since his injury issues. He pops up every now and then to remind us that he has talent. We had a good showing at Worlds last year, but then he slinks away down the leaderboard and kind of disappears. And I sometimes question where his focus is at as a pro, and I wonder if even he knows what he wants right now on tour. So, but I would say the world of disc golf is so much better with him in it when he's playing well. Just looking at these 3, I think he's the riskiest pick, so I got to sell on Eagle McMahon. Moving over to the buy portion, I'm buying on Ricky because with Ricky, I know exactly what I'm getting. I'm getting a pedigree of winning and general consistency. And from a manufacturer's perspective, I think he brings immediate value. I mean, why else would Discraft have gone after him? But he has plenty of wins left in his tank. And here's something no one talks about is he's not very tied down in his life. So he still has all the time in the world to have top tier focus. And I think he's just one of the safest buys you can make in the modern disc golf market right now. And so that means I'm holding on Isaac, which really should come at little surprise because he's shown us his ability to go out and get the big win. He is a 2-time, world champion after all, but he's also shown us he can go on some really, really big cold streaks. But he's only 22 years old. He's got a new bag he's breaking in. And I think given time and experience, he's going to be a very solid future option. Just not yet. That's why I'm holding on him. But I think Isaac is about to have a tough personal year between you and me and everyone out there watching the show is because I think that between him being competitive and trying to find success and his pursuit of the win and learning his new bag this year, he's going to see his brother improving a lot. And I think this is the year where the narrative is going to start to shift that Ezra is the superior Robinson brother of the two. And I think it's going to push Isaac in many ways. And so that's why I'm just going to hold on him for a while. But I think long term, Isaac is that future buy you're investing in, knowing that he's gold. He's gold.
Okay. All right. Good arguments there. Very sound. Dustin, what do we think?
I actually love this because we have zero overlap because I decided to take some risks. So I'm actually really happy about this. So I'm holding Ricky, and I'm holding Ricky because I think his stock is pretty high, right? He had a super consistent year last year, grabbed 3 wins, had 10 additional podium finishes, including at 2 majors, and just played well all throughout. Really, the only thing that hurt him was the fact that Gainenberg had such a dominant season, and AB technically had more wins than him. But I think Ricky had overall the better season. His worst finish was 18th at Idlewild. AB had several blunders. So I value that consistency a lot. And really the only thing that holds his stock from going more is that he hasn't got that major curse off of him yet, right? So I'm kind of thinking to myself, while Ricky did have some struggles at Waco to open this season, he kind of historically has struggled there, except for his second place finish in 2019. Had a top 10 finish there last year, 9 strokes off the lead. This year, he's 12 strokes off the lead. So kind of similar stuff. I just think that he's going to be really good throughout the course of the year. And so I'm holding on to stock that I think is already pretty high. Isaac Robinson, I'm selling. And you guys are going to think that I'm ludicrous for saying this, but when I'm looking at it from the perspective of the fact that his stock is crazy high right now, he just won back-to-back world titles, and he has a 3rd major at Champions Cup. And I have to pick someone for this slot. I know I'm taking a risk, but how many times do we get, like, is he going to go 3 world titles in a row? Are you really gambling on that? Because that's the only way that stock gets any higher to me is if he wins more world titles, or he wins more USDGCs, which doesn't have any yet, or he does something big, like maybe some European Opens or something like that. But there's not many multiple-time world champions on tour right now. It's only Paul and Ricky and Isaac. So I just, and I guess the rare Nate Doss appearance. So it's a rare class of player, and I think it's hard to build from that position to make your stock any higher. And he, like you mentioned, he does have some blunders out there on the course, man. He does lack a little bit of consistency. Yeah, he usually finishes in the top 10, but he has some big blunders. And so to me, I'm selling because I think his stock is super high right now, and I don't think it gets much better. For Ricky, look, for Eagle, I'm buying because there's a lot. His stock is low due to injury, due to some of his performances recently. But when he was healthy in 2023, I saw him a top 10 player consistently. I think he's got a complete game. He's very dangerous. He's still pretty young. I think he can actually go out there and make some magic happen.
Well, I think it took you a little while to get to your buy there, but yeah, you did sell me on the Isaac one because that was what I actually had in mind. I totally agree. I think he's a good player, but I don't think that stock gets higher. He's won back-to-back world titles. He hasn't proven to be a consistent winner throughout the tour seasons, and it would not be shocking to me if this is one of the golden stretches of his career. Very young, tough to say that, but the stock is undoubtedly could be at its highest point right now. So that was where I was wondering if anybody would go, and I was glad that you did go there. So I'll give you the win for that. Very strong argument, but Gary, your arguments were sound as well. You can't go super wrong with those 3 players, right? They're obviously all.
That was a great question by you, by the way. That was actually extremely difficult to pick. You can go a lot of ways on that.
Had similarities, so
yeah, that was really good. It made a question. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys didn't have any overlap
Point
there.
Point for Trevor. On that
I was going to make sure we didn't have any overlap. I have multiple answers ready just in case, depending on what Gary said.
Hey, that's a seasoned vet right there. That's how you do it on this show. All right, well, that was another episode of Debate Night. Some fun topics. We typically do get some exciting things during the disc golf weekends when we've got tournaments. We've got another one coming up.
Hunter won because he has 14 points and I have 7. So
that is true. I have a new. First off, yes, I'm still undefeated at the end of this show. Secondly, I have a new conspiracy theory. I have not been on a show this season that the color blue has not won.
Yeah, that's why he was happy with orange.
I think it's the color blue. What was Mike last?
I think Mike was blue.
It's the 3rd position. It's the 3rd position down. I think it's because of where you fall in the timeline. Trevor gives people the most points.
We're just gonna have to keep it moving.
Hey, if
blue wins again next week, I think Silas has to change that blue.
I would say Gary's eyes should be permanent buff then, if that's the case.
That's
change that blue to something else.
Well, it would have to check out that one of the spots. Maybe just my good questions keep falling in the right place.
There it is. This looks cool. Doesn't work. Still too strong.
It's still blue, Gary.
That too.
Anywho, if you want to submit any topics to the show, you can scan the QR code on the screen. We love getting new topics. We need some more topics, so pump them in there. Anything. Get as creative as you want. You saw that last question there. It was just very creative, open-ended. Those are great for the show. Our guests love to debate those. So chuck those in there and make sure to vote on the Instagram story who you think won this episode if you disagreed. But if you agreed, make sure to go on there and vote Dustin and give him those votes. And we'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.